everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And we have ourselves a big show today, as we have a guest to talk not only Cal Baptist, but Claremont, Mud, Scripps, as well as Cal State San Bernardino volleyball. Who is our guest? You'll have to wait and see. And how about Baylor knocking out number one ranked Texas? There's only one undefeated left in the top 25. Who will it be? And I got to see some NCAA men's volleyball action as Hawaii took to Costa Mesa for the Orange Coast Classic. How'd they do, and what did Charlie Wade have to say? And Marymount and Aliso Niguel are CIF Southern Section champions. How did they do it, and what was the key to the victory? Set up the net, hand me a volleyball, because I'm about to serve you up some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon. I really appreciate you all tuning in, and it's going to be a fun show for everyone, as we've got a lot of volleyball to get into. So without any further delay, let's get on into the volleyball action. But first, let's introduce our guest for tonight. My guest is the senior writer for Inland Empire Sports, and he does a fantastic job as he covers everything in the Inland Empire, whether it's high school sports, whether it's college sports. There's even some pro sports going on in the Inland Empire. Regardless, he's just a fantastic overall guy, and he does a great job with what he does. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing my guest for tonight, the one, the only, Mr. Derryl Trujillo. Derryl, how you doing, buddy?
Good. How about you, Teran? Happy Monday. A little chilly out here, but we're doing this.
Yeah, it is great to have you on. I love the work that you do, and you keep doing what you do. And I definitely appreciate everybody tuning in and just watching his stuff and reading his stuff and whatnot. So definitely do keep an eye out for Mr. Derryl Trujillo. So without any further delay, let's get on into the volleyball action. But first, we actually have a little disclaimer. So these are the thoughts and opinions of myself and Derryl Trujillo, and not the thoughts and opinions of iSports Radio, Inland Empire Sports, or any third or fourth party organization. So we just got to get that out of the way just in case the fun police is watching. But Derryl, the floor is all yours. Tell everybody who you are, what you do, and who Derryl Trujillo is.
All right, so my name's Derryl Trujillo. I am the senior writer for Inland Sports, covering all things Temecula, Beaumont, Fontana, Rubidoux, San Bernardino volleyball, baseball, basketball, softball, golf, you name it. I try to hit on it. I'm also a contributing writer to WAC Hoops Digest and the Valley News out of Murrieta and Temecula.
Awesome stuff. And again, you definitely got to check out his articles and whatnot. So last week we had ourselves quite the result that I actually got informed of, courtesy of Mr. Derryl, as California Baptist, or CBU, was able to pull off a couple of big wins in the Western Athletic Conference, or the WAC. So, Derryl, tell the people, what's it like covering California Baptist, or CBU for that matter?
It's been a blast to see this program go from Division II regional, Pac West champion regional hosts in 17 to they made the NIVC in their first year in 2018, and after a couple of rough campaigns in 19 and 20, they're in a position to not only win the program's first Western Athletic Conference title, but make another appearance in the NIVC, since as a result of the transition, they're not eligible for the WAC tournament and the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I do not like that rule personally. I know it is what it is, but I really think California Baptist is doing a fantastic job in making big strides. And honestly, I think they have a bright future ahead of them. So, who have been some standouts in your book when it comes to the CBU women's volleyball team?
Tessa Oakes has been just an impressive 4-year contributor for the Lancers. She's battled some health problems, but she's back to full song right now. Shireen Doway, a transfer from Florida International, really she probably had a legitimate case for WAC Offensive Player of the Week that week that they beat New Mexico State and Grand Canyon at home last week. Not last week, but the week before last week, to put them into this position in the WAC West where they might only need one win to win the WAC title, but obviously Brandon Higa and company want to get those 2 Utah wins and just see how things shake out on Thursday night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they not only beat Grand Canyon, they swept them, which was very surprising. They also beat New Mexico State in 4 sets, which was quite amazing. And thank you for informing me of this win. And I never would have gotten to this had you not told me. But it's really good to branch out to all the other non-Power 5 schools, just because everyone's making a huge deal of the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, which is basically volleyball country. But the WAC has some stud athletes as well, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you go all the way through the WAC. You've got players like Kat Kelly, Leah Mosier at New Mexico State, Tegan DeFalco at Grand Canyon, libero extraordinaire, was the WAC Defensive Player of the Week. I think she had averaged about 5 digs a set last weekend. I'd have to read the release again, but you've got solid players all throughout the WAC, and I think the misnomer is just because you're not a P5 conference doesn't mean there's not good volleyball to be had. And I mean, if you look at those WAC standings, that WAC West starting the week, you got a 4-way tie with CBU, Grand Canyon, New Mexico. There's at least a 3-way tie, and Chicago State in that race too. Mm-hmm. So, and Chicago State is in their final year of WAC membership. So for them, this is big to not only be in a title race, because their WAC tenure has been let's just say less than successful, and that's why they're looking for greener pastures.
Yeah, and it's obviously tough to be when you're not a non-Power 5 school. Like, the fact that BYU and some of these other schools like Western Kentucky, San Diego, Rice was in there for a moment, and Pepperdine was there for the most part, ranked in the top 25, is rather a miracle. And I think, I want to see more of these non-Power 5 schools get some love. For me, it's the Big West that deserves some more love, just because even though it's a 2-horse race between UC Santa Barbara and Hawaii, I think it's a very competitive conference, and there have been some teams that have had success. Like Cal Poly has played a tough schedule. Long Beach State, despite its turmoil, pulled out a impressive victory over San Diego. They played Georgia Tech tough. So I think, to me, Power 5 conferences matter just as much as, or non-Power 5 conferences matter just as much as Power 5 conferences.
Yeah, and Teran, what kind of give me your thoughts on the whole Long Beach, Mackenzie Joy Furbinger being let go situation at mid-year? I mean, that's not a situation that I expected Long Beach to be in. I thought they would let her finish and then make their move, because if there was a coach that was going to be let go at mid-year in the Big West, she would be the last one I would have expected.
Yeah, to me, that was not really one of the better decisions, in my opinion. Especially when you're letting go of a coach in the middle of the season. It doesn't do the players much good, considering it messes with them mentally, and now they got to adapt to a new head coach or an associate head coach or an interim head coach. And I think that the problem was certainly not Joy McKenzie-Furbringer. The problem with Long Beach State was that they had such a young team. They had 2 seniors and 3 juniors, and the rest were just freshmen and sophomores. It's like, and this is the fault of Joy McKenzie-Furbringer? Like, come on now. Like, you got to be it didn't do them any good, and seeing the results that they weren't able to beat like certain opponents like Cal Poly or Bakersfield, I don't think Joy was the problem at all. I think the problem was just that they were battling a lot of youth. And, any given day when it comes to the Big West, anybody can beat anybody. Look at what happened with Santa Barbara and UC Davis. And then eventually Cal Poly and Santa Barbara, which Cal Poly won. So all in all, I think it was not the best decision. I think they should have just let her ride out the entire year. And whichever college does land Joy McKenzie-Furbringer, who has a great pedigree of coaching and player experience, I think is going to be the lucky one. And whether it's college or whether it's high school or maybe junior college, it's that program is going to be very, very fortunate. So there's that. So looking at the Western Athletic Conference Western Division, CBU is a half game out of first place behind New Mexico State and Grand Canyon, both of the teams that they beat. So looking at CBU's remaining schedule, they are home against Utah Valley, they're at Utah Valley and at Dixie State, which are below CBU. So about CBU and its chances of making or possibly winning the Western Division, what chance do you give the Lancers of possibly winning those games?
Well, you got to remember that when CBU played Dixie and Utah Valley that first time, they were coming off the 5-set win in Las Cruces over New Mexico State. So they went from the highest of high to the lowest of low, and at that point, they had to reset things if they were going to, be players in the WAC race, and they've certainly done more than their share of doing that. If you look at the box score against GCU from the first time that CBU played to the last time at home, Grand Canyon held them to 0-6-1 hitting in Phoenix. Mm-hmm. At Van Dyne and Riverside, they hit 3. I want to say it was 326. Or it was in the 3s. It was in the high 3s. So look at the offensive turnaround that occurred there in the last month or so. Because even the Utah and Dixie matches, although they weren't wins, they were sweeps. CBU was able to still hit in the hundreds. Mm-hmm. So that's the Lancers on a bad day, and New Mexico and Grand Canyon have seen the Lancers on a good day.
Yeah, without a doubt, and like I said, when it comes to conference play, it's any given day or night or whenever the teams play, because conference play is such a different animal, and I think conference play brings out the best in practically every team, especially when it comes to some of these rivalries. So with 2 matches remaining, CBU has a chance to clinch at least a share of the Western Division. Grand Canyon and New Mexico State each have 1 match, and they both play Chicago State on different days. So, against Chicago State, I don't know if you saw that, but what can you say about Chicago State? And if you've seen Chicago State, what are their strengths and basically what are their weaknesses as well?
I haven't seen Chicago State this year. I know Yanni Feliz was named a WAC Offensive Player of the Week this week. But this is the best season Chicago State has had at the Division I level in volleyball in a number of years. When you go up and down that schedule, there's going to be one win that sticks it pokes its eyes out at you. They beat Indiana in Bloomington in a sweep. Now, who would have thunk that?
Nobody.
Certainly not this beat writer who covers the WAC. And I wouldn't have had Chicago State in this position this late in the year. Certainly they struggled at the beginning of WAC play. They actually lost to CBU in Van Dyne in a sweep. So, that shows you just how crucial home floor is in the WAC.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I think it's definitely going to be a fight to the finish, and this is basically like the final tune-up for all these teams that are playing. And then also, I want to say it was New Mexico State. Yeah, New Mexico State has another non-league game against UTSA, if I'm not or UTEP. So that's going to also be another tune-up matchup for New Mexico State. And this is just the West Division, mind you. The Southwest Division, it's also looking rather eye-opening, as Sam Houston State has the lead, followed by Stephen F. Austin, and then it just is it's not a big drop, but it's like a rather deep drop, as UT Rio Grande Valley is third, and then Tarleton, and then it goes down to the other two. So, all in all for the WAC, there is a WAC tournament, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes, hosted by New Mexico State. I haven't seen how the bracketing is going to work with the two divisions yet. I imagine it's going to be some form of, take the top four from the West and the top four from the Southwest, and then throw them together in Las Cruces for a few days. Obviously, CVU would not count against that number.
So even if CBU wins the Western Division, or at least gets a tie for the Western Division clincher, they wouldn't be in the tournament?
Yeah, the rules of the transition are that you're not eligible for your conference tournament for 4 years and for the NCAA tournament for 4 years. Although the WAC did grant CBU's basketball teams an exemption to that rule kind of at the start of the pandemic for 2020 and 21. Mm-hmm. And the Lancer women's basketball team went on an unprecedented run to win the WAC regular season and the tournament title.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. I talked about it in my other show, SoCal Supreme Sports Show. But that's for another day. But yeah, I definitely do remember that, and that I'm still against that rule, but it is what it is. But seeing California Baptist practically about to clinch at least a share of the Western Division would be absolutely amazing, and it would just go to show you that there is no excuse for teams doing good. I think any team on any given night is able to defeat anybody, and more importantly, it would show the growth of the Lancers, just because it's not easy to transition from a certain level to another level. So all in all for the Lancers, I think this would be huge for them. And, obviously I'm supposed to be neutral, but I really look forward to what they could do. And I think the Lancers deserve some love, just like the women's basketball team did when they went on that amazing tear through the NIT.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, for both of those matches last week, I was the only member of local media in attendance, which was rather shocking. I expected to be joined by somebody else for one of those matches, but I just chuckle and say, okay, I'm the only one. I get to tell the story.
Yeah, and good on you, man, and great stuff. Great stuff to hear. And I think all the local sports definitely do need their support, just like with me with Long Beach. Like, sometimes I'm the only media guy when it comes to Long Beach State, as I was the only one there for their upset win over what's their face, San Diego, and then I was also there for Bakersfield's first ever Big West Conference win against Long Beach State, and their first ever win over Long Beach State in general. So, so I was basically the one to basically just recap everything, interview the coaches and whatnot. So, yeah. So, moving on from the Lancers, let's jump on into some Division II action. So, Cal State San Bernardino is having a phenomenal year. And here's the story about this team. This team went 33-0. They only dropped 13 sets in 2019, and they won the NCAA Division II championship. Not bad, if you ask me. So, Derryl, let me ask you, did you cover that team? And if so, how was it covering the undefeated team and the NCAA champion?
So I covered one day of the West Regional last year. My real job kind of kept me away from the other 2 days. But here's the funny thing. I line judged that conference. So the first year I was a member of media was 2017, when Cal Baptist hosted the West Regional. And so I finished my slate. I wasn't selected for the tournament. I always know that I'm not going to make the tournament. So I was like, okay, I'll help out. I jump into the media room, and Kim Chernus is there, and I have to imagine she has a look like, what are you doing here? You're one of my line judges, not a reporter. But no, Kim has been great to work with, and I really enjoy going there whenever I get the chance to officiate or even cover them. And they're in a position right now where at number 5 in the AVCA Division 2 poll this week, as long as they don't stumble in the conference tournament, I think you're going to see the Coyotes hosting the West Region tournament for the second straight time.
Yeah, and actually for this week, I see them at number 3 when it comes to the women's volleyball coaches poll in Division 2. They're right behind.
I haven't even looked at this week's poll, so.
Yeah, it just came out. They haven't even released Division 3s, which is kind of lame, and they probably released it right under our noses now that we're probably speaking it. Anyway, back to San Bernardino. So this team was 3-3 at one point, and ever since then they've won 17 in a row, and they've swept their opponents 11 times, and they've only lost 8 sets during that winning streak. So any noteworthy players that you've seen when it comes to CSUSB?
Okay, so they return Alexis Cardoza, who was the National Player of the Year in 19, who was their top attacker. Asia Clark from Elsinore High School is a key cog in that team. There's a lot of local talent on that team to highlight. Their setter, Marley Nunley from Vista Marietta, is a sophomore who guided the Coyotes to that national title as a freshman. So they're young, but they've got a veteran coach in Kim Chernus, veteran leadership in Alexis Cardoza, and I expect another deep run to the national championship tournament from the Coyotes.
Yeah, I do too, just because it's obviously not easy being the reigning champion. And I'm just going to say this right now. I've basically blabbed about how it's so tough to go undefeated and win a championship. Like, you look at what happened with Gonzaga's men's basketball team and some of these other teams that have been undefeated only to stumble into the NCAA tournament. Like Wisconsin women's volleyball, they were the number 1 seed and they wound up losing to Texas. So for Cal State San Bernardino to do that back in 2019, to go undefeated and win an NCAA championship, it's absolutely amazing, and I really got to tip my hat to that, because it's so tough mentally, especially when you enter the postseason, when you're thinking, oh, we can't lose, otherwise that's it, and whatnot. Just because some teams kind of crumble under pressure when it comes to those high expectations and that long winning streak. But the Coyotes, like you said, are in a position to have another deep tournament run. And with Cardoza, who has 325 kills, I think it's definitely doable. So there's that right there.
And for the listeners out there, the Division II regional is after Thanksgiving. So that week after Thanksgiving, that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, set your calendars. I don't know what the ticket prices are going to be like or what the COVID-19 protocols are like for Casulas Arena, but if you have a chance and you're in the area, go show our reigning Division II national champions some love as they try to make another push towards bringing home another one.
Oh yeah, and great little plug right there. And yeah, I definitely do support your local teams. So for this week, they close out the conference play, and they have a whopping three matches this week. They have a match tomorrow at Sonoma State. They have a home game against Stanislaus State. If I butchered that, I apologize. And then they have a match against Chico State, which is their senior night. So have you seen any of those teams, and which of those 3 teams can possibly pose a threat to the Coyotes?
I have not seen the CCAA North this year. Actually, it's one CCAA this year. They eliminated the divisions. But historically, Sonoma State tends to be able to take a set off of the Coyotes. Bear Grassel's a veteran, just like Kim Chernus. has run a great program up there at Sonoma. I got to see them firsthand in that regional tournament in 2017. Pushed CBU to the brink on the first night, and Bear's a funny guy in the interview room too. Huh?
So, wrapping up with Bakersfield, like, what's the vibe like when it comes to, and I meant to ask this when it came to California Baptist, what's like the crowd level like, and how hype is the crowd, and is it like a big crowd every now and then?
Okay, at CBU, like, they get a pretty good turnout. I mean, the student section at Van Dyne's pretty well packed. And the section behind me, you can hear, all the cheers and everything behind all of us on press row. You can see the student section going nuts on big plays, and you just love to see it. And it's the same way at Cal State San Bernardino. It's one of my favorite places to work just because of the student environment, never mind the level of play.
I see. Gotcha. So I can see that being that. I can see that when it comes to envisioning that. So the last team that you cover when it comes to the collegiate level is Claremont Mud Scripps, and I made a mistake when I mistook it for Claremont McKenna Scripps. It's Claremont Mud Scripps, not Claremont McKenna, Claremont Mud Scripps. So this is actually a school in NCAA Division III, and this is one of the more impressive teams, as they're 27-1, and their lone loss was to Calvin on October 22nd in a 4-set loss in the Midwest Invitational. Other than that, they won their conference tournament, and they went 16-0 in conference play. And I also saw that they had won 27 straight SIAC conference games dating back to last year. So what can you say about Claremont Mud Scripps and how they have put together an impressive run?
The expectations are high in Claremont, and it's because of Kurt Vlasic. Great coach. And what impresses me the most is if you look at that roster, he fills it with local talent. I mean, you got Jenna Holmes from Ontario Christian, who was the SIAC Newcomer of the Year, I believe. She was the tournament MOP. She had, 20 or 30 kills in that championship match in the 5 sets? Mm-hmm. Summer Ellis from Great Oak, Brenna Bell, Murrieta Valley. He fills it with IE talent, and then he builds around those locals.
Yeah, and you talked about Jenna Holmes. She's only a sophomore, and she was named the tournament MVP. She is nearing that 300 kill margin, as she has 297. She also has 221 digs to boot, so she has been performing really well, and it's so hard to believe that she's dominating at that level despite her only being a sophomore. It's rather amazing and impressive. And then you also have to make note of Melanie Williams, who has 276 kills. She's the senior opposite. And then Jackie Jones has 201 kills. She's also plays on the outside. What also catches my eye is their freshman, Didi Carranza, who has 408 digs, as she is the dig leader. And that's some impressive stuff right there, as, again, this team has like the brightest future with a lot of these underclassmen and how they're just continuing to dominate at the 4-year level. So what can you say about Carranza and some of these young players in the future that is in store for CMS?
Oh yeah, the future is bright for CMS. Even if this year does go awry, they're in position to win the SIAC and do great things on the Division III national scale for a couple of years here. And the good thing about Vlasic is he's a club coach himself, or was, for Forza 1 North. So he's got that blend of club experience and collegiate credibility that he can say, look, when he's recruiting, he can say, hey, look, I've done this. I've seen you at a club level. You can do this. And I've seen Holmes play. I saw Holmes play in high school when she was at Ontario Christian, a stud there for Paige Liebhart on the back-to-back state tournament title teams. And I knew that was going to be the fit for her when she signed there. I wasn't sure what kind of an impact she was going to have. I just knew that was going to be a good home for her. So it's good to see somebody I covered at the high school level making that kind of an impact on the big stage.
So we talked about how the SIAC tournament occurred. I'm looking at this, and I'm rather surprised they had to go 5 with Chapman, but Chapman took CMS to 5 the previous time. So I don't know if you've seen Chapman, but talk to me on how Chapman is, and are they for real, and are they sometimes CMS's kryptonite?
I have not seen Chapman in a couple of years. I haven't seen the SIAC since I stopped working for them as a line judge. I worked in that conference for a year. I had Chapman. They're a good program, scrappy. They fight hard. But honestly, I haven't seen this year's group enough to comment. But I mean, if you're pushing a team that's in the top 10 of the Division III AVCA poll as CMS is, you got to be doing something right as a coach. You just need that one little extra piece to push you over the top next time.
Mm-hmm. And I guess since the tournament is starting, they haven't really put out a Division III poll, which, shocker, that is kind of what it's meant to be. So, so anyway, yes, you did mention that CMS was number 3 in the nation, and that was of the most recent poll. So this week, CMS is taking on Aurora it's going to be in the regional. It's a part of the NCAA Division III regionals, and it's going to be in Waverly, Iowa. So here's a little fill-in-the-blank question for you. Claremont Mud Scripps wins the NCAA Division III championship if blank.
If they set aside, the distractions of the big stage and just focus step by step like they've been doing all year.
Got it. Great answer. So something else to note about CMS was that they went 27-4 back in 2019, which was darn right impressive. And back in 2017, they won the NCAA Division III championship. As I actually had a friend that played on CMS. Her name was Amanda Walker, and I saw she managed to contribute quite well for CMS, and it was great. It was great to see, and I was like, "Oh, cool! CMS is the NCAA champion, and that's my friend right there." So, all in all, this program is on the up and up, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what this team does, especially when the NCAA tournament starts this week. And I definitely got to keep an eye on this. So, glad I was able to run into you and basically talk about some CMS. You have anything else you want to add about CMS?
No, I'm with you. I'm excited to see how they do in that regional tournament and see if they can't make it to the national championship tournament and bring back home another title. It's just a shame that a team ranked that highly by the AVCA has to travel for their regional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as a Southern California guy, I am all for seeing CMS winning it all. And then same can be said for San Bernardino. So there's that. So jumping from the NCAA volleyball level, let's jump to some high school sports action. As one of the teams you said you covered, Vista Marietta, they actually made the CIF state tournament as they're in the open division, which is the highest division, as they'll play Miracosta. So have you possibly seen Vista Marietta, and if so, what's been the more impressive things that they've done this season?
On tape, and obviously I've kept up with their results, just their league is a Tuesday-Thursday league, which is hard for my real schedule, my real adult job.
Mm-hmm.
But Claire Little's impressive on the outside. She's their primary attacker. Couple of really good setters. Lexi Duffey leads that group. But just what Ed Titano has been able to do there in a couple of short years, following up what Kristen Robarts did, has been nothing downright short of impressive. State title in 19, Southwestern League championships 19 and 21. It's just been impressive to watch, and the fact that they've only, the Southwestern League is basically a small college league disguising itself as a high school conference.
Mm-hmm.
And for the Broncos to only drop 2 matches in those 2 league championship years is just impressive.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Vista Marietta has done an outstanding job. And you talked about Claire Little. I think she is one of the, and this is my opinion, she's one of the top premier players in the class of 2023. And she is going to BYU, which is a huge get for the Cougars. I think that is going to help out the Cougars quite a bit. But she definitely wants to end out her high school career on top. And she's done an excellent job. And like you said, Ed Titano has done an outstanding job with Vista Marietta. And to tell you all how tough it is to win the Southern Section Championship in Division I, Vista Marietta had to beat Lakewood. Now, granted, Lakewood had some other things that happened within their program prior to the playoffs, but honestly, the fact that they defeated Lakewood, one of the top premier teams in the state and in the nation, is quite impressive. Keep in mind, Lakewood defeated Cathedral Catholic in a tournament, and that solidified their spot as one of the top teams in California and one of the premier threats in the Southern Section. So, all in all, I give my salute to Vista Marietta.
Oh, yeah, and that Southwestern League as a whole, I mean, 5 of their 6 teams made the CIF Southern Section postseason, which is a remarkable feat for any league, let alone one of the toughest public school leagues in Southern California and possibly the state.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I've seen the Southwestern League. To me, I think the Southwestern League, in my honest opinion, is one of the premier leagues. Everyone makes a huge deal about the Trinity League and maybe the Sunset Conference and the South Coast League, but I think the Southwestern League is just as good just because you have Vista Marietta, Chaparral, I saw them play. They're legit. Marietta Valley, they're also a great team. Temecula Valley, which was the first Inland Empire team to win a state championship, is also good. And as you said, Vista Marietta, which won the state championship last year, became the second Inland Empire team to win a state championship. So all in all, for the Southwestern League and for all of Inland Empire high school volleyball, it's rather impressive. And I feel it's quite the honor to talk to someone who has been covering the Southwestern League.
And there's some other, there were some other wacky happenings this year in the IE, if we got time to hit those.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so Linfield Christian won back-to-back CIF titles in 2018 and 19 under Eric Hawes and his wife, Danny, who was serving as his assistant. Danny Hawes was the previous Linfield coach for a couple of years in the early 2000s before stepping away. So they win back-to-back CIF titles. They graduate all the talent from those teams. Former Marietta Valley player Dana Ortiz jumps into the chair this year, with her star player Brianna Mitchell, the daughter of the athletic director, and they go 6-0 in 5-set matches this year, Terrence. 6-0.
Holy Moses! So that's actually very impressive. And now that we're talking about some other wacky deals, I did not know this one. I did not know Ontario Christian had won 21 consecutive playoff matches or postseason matches going into this season. Well, they won their 21st against Marietta Valley, and then they won.
I covered that match.
Yeah, I think I saw your article. And then number 22 came against Foothill, which I was downright impressed, just because Foothill, even though they've been through some ups and downs, they graduate most of their players, they're an impressive program. So, unfortunately, the streak kind of came to an end against Palos Verdes, but Ontario Christian gave Palos Verdes all it could handle, just because Palos Verdes has a young team. I've seen Palos Verdes in action. I saw them at the Redondo Varsity Classic, and all in all, I thought Ontario Christian has a lot to be proud of. And keep in mind, this is not only the Southern Section playoffs that's being counted as a postseason win, but for the state playoffs as well. And I totally forgot that Ontario Christian was a thing, and they jumped from Division 4 and then Division 3, and then they were in Division 1 and 2.
Yeah, they went from 5 to 3 to the 1-2 group.
Yeah, I didn't even, again, it did not help that I did not hear of this school, and then I saw them in the Dave Moe's varsity tournament against Chaparral, believe it or not, and I think their libero actually kind of got hurt. She got hurt, and she hit her, like, the front of her, I think it was the front of her mouth or her nose hit the ground, and unfortunately she had to, like, leave. But the fact that Ontario Christian was resilient and they were able to topple Chaparral just speaks to high volumes of how hard they've worked and how hard and amazing that program is. And I think it's just grit and resiliency, and they kind of remind me of Sierra Canyon. Like, Sierra Canyon won through the lower divisions, and then they got brought up to 1 and 2 as well, with the only exception of Sierra Canyon was in that upper echelon of the Division 1 bracket.
Yeah, well, when I talked to Marietta Valley's coach, Ann Romero Parks, afterwards, I asked her, if you plugged this night's team into the Southwestern League, could they hang? And she said, most certainly yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, beating Chaparral, and Chaparral's not an easy team to defeat. Like, I know the tournament format was best 2 out of 3, but honestly, Ontario Christian having to win without its starting libero and having to, like, readjust after that injury, it speaks to high volumes of how mentally they are able to take on anyone. And they even finished that tournament by only, I think they got 10th in that tournament, which they almost won the silver division bracket. They unfortunately lost to Huntington Beach in that silver division, which Huntington Beach is definitely one of the top premier teams in Division 1 and 2, and I should know that since I've seen them a couple times.
Oh, yeah, and the thing about Ontario Christian is, you got to look at this. I did not even know this until the night of the Marietta Valley match, but Paige Liebhart, their coach, is in her 14th year. She's taken that program to places that I'm sure when she started there 14 years ago, I don't know that she thought she'd get to take them to. But the Ambassador League winning streak that they're on, I think this is their 3rd or 4th straight Ambassador League title. The postseason winning streak. Just the things that they've been able to accomplish for a school at the Ambassador League level, where talent it comes in cycles. It's like you might have a good group a group that comes in together as freshmen, they graduate together as seniors, they do really good things. You might have a couple of down years. Mm-hmm. There's been no drop off for them since the year where they played Notre Dame of Riverside 3 times in the CI in a year.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel that Ontario Christian has everyone on notice saying we're not to be underestimated. And if I had known about them a lot sooner, I would have definitely like done a little bit more research on them. Like, I didn't even know of them until the Dave Moe's tournament when they were in the same pool as Newport Harbor, which I primarily cover them, Redondo Union, and Chaparral. So, yeah. All in all, for Ontario Christian, I definitely got to tip my hat to them on a fantastic season. I wish they'd gotten selected into state, but unfortunately, certain teams in the semifinals and certain teams from the Division 2 quarterfinals actually made it. Like, it kind of doesn't make any sense. Like, Beckman made the Division 2 final, or they made the state playoffs, and then I feel there was one other team. And then in Palos Verdes, I don't know if Palos Verdes made it, but either way, Beckman making it kind of struck me as odd, even though Laguna Beach probably had maybe a better ranking, or Ontario Christian had somewhat of a better ranking. It just really boggles my mind. And now that we're talking about state playoffs, another team that made the state playoffs was Etiwanda, which is also in your area. So Etiwanda had a special year this year, as they made it all the way to the CIF Southern Section Division 3 semifinals, only to lose to J. Sarah, which eventually we'll be getting into that momentarily. But one of their impressive wins through the tournament was defeating Orange Lutheran. So I don't know if you were at that game, but what can you say about Etiwanda and how special of a year this was for them?
Yeah, I actually, they're kind of a fringe area team for us. Much like Ontario Christian, we don't do a lot with the Baseline League. I kind of leave that to folks like my good colleague at the Press Enterprise, Eric Paul Johnson. But that Baseline League was wacky this year. I think they were second in our coverage area for a number of fives in league play. So I talked about Linfield Christian having 6 fives on their own count. I think the Baseline as a whole had 9 or 10. It was obscene.
Yeah, that is rather amazing. I didn't even know that Etiwanda was that legit. Like, I knew they were going to be a possible dark horse team, but then I was like, can they really be Orange Lutheran or Norco? Like, the Norco win was really what got me. I'm like, okay, and I'm thinking, okay, this Etiwanda team might actually have a shot. And I think this puts everybody on notice that Etiwanda is not just a basketball school. They are a possible volleyball school and football school. So I'm quite impressed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes it just takes one run or one win to change people's perception of a program. I mean, I'll use Linfield Christian as the perfect example. Prior to those back-to-back CIF championship teams, it had been 6 years, 7 years, something like that, since the Linfield volleyball team had even made the playoffs. And then they go and win back-to-back titles.
Yeah, it is quite. Yeah. Once again, that is some great stuff, and I feel that Etiwanda kind of like, I don't think they benefited from the COVID year, but obviously most of the teams like that weren't from like Orange County or that didn't have like an indoor season kind of benefited because they just came out a little bit more hungry, and it really sucks that not everybody got to have an indoor volleyball season. Some got to have like a beach volleyball season, and then others just got to have some sort of indoor volleyball. Like the Trinity League got to have one round of indoor volleyball, and then Mater Dei also got to play Marymount. But I digress on that. Yeah, but to go back to every one of those teams that didn't have a season last year or didn't get to play any indoor matches, I think that's what really fired them up for this year, because they probably thought this is our first indoor match in over 600 days, and playing at home also definitely helped Etiwanda most likely as well. And it was a bummer that their season came to a halting end against J. Sarah, but they're in the state playoffs, and I think, who knows, maybe they could be a dark horse in the state playoffs as well. So, we talked.
The match I want to highlight that Chino Hills Torrance possible second rounder in what is it, D4 state or D5 state?
Yeah, I think it's D5.
Those two could find each other again on Saturday, or was it Thursday?
Yeah, I think it is definitely possible, and I'm actually on the CIF state website right now, and anything is possible when it comes to the state playoffs, just because it is do or die, and this is basically the pinnacle of everyone's season. So I would like to see Chino Hills and what's their face? It's not
Torrance go at it again.
Yeah, Torrance and Chino Hills, and I think it's actually Division 4, if I'm not mistaken. Division 4 or Division 3. I'm looking at the brackets, and yeah, Division 3, as Chino Hills is the 5 seed and Torrance is the 4 seed. And Torrance did win their CIF Southern Section Championship. I think it was their first, in my opinion, or if I'm not mistaken. But all in all, that would be a fun matchup for Chino Hills and Torrance to meet up in the second round of the regionals. So,
see, to me, those sorts of those rematches of sectional finals, I kind of call those the committee humor matchups, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
that's like the seating committee showing their sense of humor by placing two teams that just played each other a week ago, playing each other again if they win on 6 days later.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that was the case for Division 2, where Newport Harbor and Mission Viejo got lumped together, where 2 weeks ago, Newport Harbor was the top seed, Mission Viejo was an at-large. And Mission Viejo had the home game against Newport, and they managed to pull off the upset against Newport Harbor, and everyone thought, including myself, that it was the end of the Sailors season, which ended in abrupt fashion. But then they get the news that, unfortunately for JSerra, they used an ineligible player, and they got disqualified from their finals matchup. And keep in mind, JSerra, to listeners out there, JSerra made it all the way to the Division III Southern Section Finals, only to get disqualified and have El Toro be the champion. So with that, Newport Harbor took JSerra's spot in state, as the CIF Southern Section Committee also disallowed JSerra into state. So while it is,
it's the right ruling, but you got to feel for El Toro too, not getting to step on the championship floor on Saturday like the other 18 teams got to.
Yeah, and I think it's something you don't want to see, but it is good to win a championship, but not in that fashion. Like, you'd rather earn the championship and have that atmosphere where there's like screaming fans and student sections going at it. And although El Toro would have been the home team
in that matchup.
Yeah, El Toro would have been the home team, and that would have been great for them to just have that home game, especially at the round after they beat their league rival Mission Viejo on the road. So all in all, yeah, I do feel for El Toro. I mainly feel for JSerra just because this was kind of their resurrection year after they've had some not so good years. But it's unfortunate. But I think JSerra will be back. And like I said, with JSerra not being in the state playoffs, Newport Harbor will hopefully, in my book, not trying to be a homer here, but hopefully will make the most of their advantage, because now if they lose, they're out for good, and there are no second chance or third chances. So
yeah. I want to hit on the Citrus Belt League volleyball race if we got time.
Yeah, we got some time. Yeah.
So we had a wacky Citrus Belt League race that came down to the very last day this year. That final Wednesday of the regular season. The CBL is a Monday-Wednesday league out here. And Beaumont came out as the CBL champ in their first year in the league after like a decade, 15 years plus in the lower tier Mountain Pass League. Former Cal State San Bernardino player Jessica Granados, that's her second league title in, I want to say 3 years or 4 years. And just what a year they had. They were 5-0 in fives before dropping 2 straight.
Yeah, that's rather impressive. I'm trying to find it right now, and I think I see it right here. Yeah, that's rather impressive. So,
especially against the caliber of team in the CBL. I mean, you got Redlands, who had a really good year this year. They pushed Mayfield to 5, which, Mayfield, we're talking Mayfield, who pushed Vista Murrieta to the limit in Arizona at the Nike TOC, if you remember.
Yes, I do, and I'm actually on the Max Preps website right now. Yeah, this was a complete logjam. This could have been I don't think I've ever seen a league like as crazy as that since probably the Sunset League of 2014, which, ironically enough, this actually played out as the same scenario for the most part. So, all in all, I see it here. Beaumont, even though they lost a couple games, they managed to win the league title, and then Redlands and Ukaipa tied for 7-3. So that's impressive. I think that might go down as the wackiest league of the girls' volleyball season. Good.
Oh, it definitely was. And then to cover it too, we spent so much time in the Citrus Belt League. I think I covered Beaumont probably 3 times this year. I saw Beaumont 3 times this year. 2 of them were 5-setters. So it's something Jessica Granados can chuckle at. Is like, okay, if she sees me, she knows that she's going 5. But that was a really good team that got knocked out by Irvine way too early on in the playoffs. I would have loved to see what they could have done with Santa Barbara, who won Division 6.
Yeah, and I think that would have been a great matchup right there as well. And it looks like Cajon, which they wound up winning 19 games, and they wound up winning.
But they missed the playoffs. Yeah,
and did they really go 6 and they really win their last 6 games, and then they just fell short?
And they missed the playoffs.
Oh man, that's a real heartbreaker right there.
That was the toughest part of Selection Sunday for me, was seeing them. I think they were probably the team that, if there was an at-large spot, they probably could have won 2 matches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think another one of my friends who coaches Marina, his team wound up finishing 14-14 overall, and they could have possibly gotten an at-large. And if they had gotten the at-large spot, I think they could have won a couple of matches here and there. And keep in mind, Marina has not really had the best track record when it comes to girls volleyball. So the fact that they just missed out on the playoffs is kind of heartbreaking. And he also jumped through a lot of hoops to schedule a match, which, if they win, then they're 500 or better. So that really is a punch to the gut.
Yeah, but then you got to think, would there have been space available?
Yeah, and then there was also the wild card games. There was also wild card games in Division 4.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, 4 had wild card games.
Yeah, and none of them included Marina, so it was like, oh wow. And keep in mind, Marina actually tied for, or no, they didn't tie. They wound up finishing second in a tournament, and I did hear that they did have a couple of players out, which kind of affected them during league, but they did push Newport Harbor to 4 sets. And again, if they have those players back on their roster after they got injured, who knows? It might have been a whole different perspective.
It was a fun season to keep an eye to cover this year. I mean, it's still going for those of you who still have teams in the state tournament. I had to shout out Beaumont there just because they were the newbies to the Citrus Belt League. You know, nobody expected a whole heck of a lot out of them. And then to go out and do what they did, win 5 straight 5s, 4 of them in the Citrus Belt League, and then win the crown. I mean, I think that speaks volumes for the job Jessica Granados has done over there.
Yeah, and I'm looking at their schedule right now. Yeah, they did win 5 in a row, or 6 in a row again in 5-set matches, and unfortunately losing to Irvine. I've heard some great things about how Irvine has drastically improved, and they're in the state they're in the state playoffs. That they managed to beat Beaumont in 5 sets, which it really is rough and whatnot. But all in all, I think it was a great year for Beaumont, and the whole Citrus League as a whole is absolutely amazing, and I think it'll continue to grow as the future continues to unfold.
Yeah, and I think that's everything I wanted to hit on. I mean, you got some smaller school teams that made nice runs. California Lutheran back to a quarterfinal in Division 9. Had to make the boat ride to Avalon, but lost. Temecula Prep made back-to-back round of 8 or furthers for the first time in about 5 years. Hillcrest for the first time in Division 7, making it to a semifinal. Lakeside for the first time in school history, making it to a quarterfinal. There were a lot of good lower division teams down here that made marks, and a name I want you to keep an eye on is Malia Labrie from Hillcrest. Division 7 Hillcrest, first time to the quarters. They lost to the semis. They lost to Capistrano Valley Christian in 5. They came back from 0-2 down to force the 5th. But Labrie's numbers in the first 2 rounds, she had 48 kills combined in those first 2 matches, 24 and 24.
Ah, got it. Yes. Yeah, that is some great stuff, and I will definitely keep an eye on her name and Highland as a whole, just because that's impressive. That's impressive. So, yeah, and I'm looking at the roster. What's her name again?
Malia Labrie.
Malia Labrie. Gotcha. So, yeah, and I think she'll have a bright future when it comes to volleyball, and I'm looking forward to it. So,
yeah, really heavy arm, and then from your area, Teran, Tarba Vitora beating United Christian Academy in that D9 title match. Don't know if you got to see that on Saturday night on the NFHS network or not, but that was a pretty good one.
Yeah, I actually did read the article on it. Lou Ponzi of the OC Register wrote a quick one on that, and I was rather impressed that they were able to grind out the win and win it all. So good for Tarbet Vitora. So one more. I just want to ask you one more thing before we head to a commercial. So obviously, Temecula Valley winning its first state championship in Vista Marietta. Temecula Valley winning the first state championship in girls volleyball in the Inland Empire, and then Vista Marietta being the second team to do so. Like, how impressive do you think it was to see those two teams pull out the win, whether you saw them in person or not?
I saw the Temecula Valley 18 win in person. I was at work during the 19 finals. But to see both of those teams make history, I mean, somehow it's only fitting that the Southwestern League makes the history and the rest of the area follows it, like Ontario Christian and everybody else. But that was very impressive. I mean, and then you look at the amount of players from those teams that went on to that are playing in college right now. Let's see, Juliet Russell from Vista Marietta is at Gonzaga. Molly Wilson from Vista Marietta is at Washington. Oh, goodness gracious. The setter for the Temecula Valley team, Jordan Amoy, was at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo for a year. And I'm sure there's more I'm forgetting, but those are the handful that come off the top of my head as we're talking right now. But they set the tone for the area, and Ontario Christian followed it, and I can't wait to see more IE teams follow those footsteps.
Yeah, and you talked about one of the players going to Washington. Steve Astor, who was one of the volunteer assistant coach for Washington, kind of made note of that and how Vista Marietta's setter was going to Washington. And I'm like, oh, interesting. So when you brought up Molly Wilson, I'm like, now I remember who she is. Steve Astor, the former Washington graduate assistant coach, or not graduate assistant coach, a volunteer assistant coach, told me all about her, and eventually now he's at Pepperdine. So
okay,
yeah, so that's great that you got to see Molly Wilson and those other players. So great job and awesome stuff, and keep up the good work, Derryl. So you have anything else you want to plug in before we head to commercial?
Yeah, no, like I said just at the beginning, though, whenever that Division II tournament schedule comes out, if you got a chance, you're in the area, and you're a fan of local volleyball, go to Casulas Arena and cheer on Cal State San Bernardino. Actually, I do have one more note. JC's, Mount San Jacinto is on the verge of their second straight Inland Empire Athletic Conference championship under Serena Eason. Beat COD 3-1 last week after beating them in 5 at Mount San Jacinto, which should lock up the IEAC championship with 3 matches to go.
Yes, and that is from the 3C2A. So, yeah, I've kept an eye on that because me being an Orange Coast College Pirate, I've seen them have some success this year, even though Irvine Valley is no longer the juggernaut that's defeating everybody. Instead, it's now Cypress that's the top dog. So, all right, Derryl, that's going to do it. Where can all these people find your work, and where can all these people follow you on social media?
All right. Stories are at inlandsports.wordpress.com. If you're a basketball fan, waxdigest.com. I occasionally contribute to the podcast there. And then if you're looking for Southwestern area stuff like Temecula Marietta, myvalleynews.com. On social media, I am at Derryl_golfer on Twitter. And then everything else is various incarnations of first and last name.
Got it. All right. Thank you, Derryl. So let's take ourselves a quick commercial break. When we come back, I will be talking about last week's NCAA women's volleyball matches and how Hawaii did when it came to the Orange Coast Classic when it came to men's volleyball. So you're listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be right back after this.
What's up, sports fans? Are you looking for the latest on Northern California sports? Then take a trip out west with me, your host, Gina G, on Reppin' the NorCal Sports, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'll be bringing it to you all the way live every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And it's always a packed show. I'll bring you everything Dynastic 49ers, the bite of the San Jose Sharks, torture of the San Francisco Giants, the Golden State Warriors that we still believe. Then take you across the bay to the rise and grind of the Oakland A's. I've got you covered on college ball from the Cal Bears to the Stanford Cardinal, so that no matter what, reppin' in NorCal sports is always reppin' the Bay. So if you bleed red and gold, or you're looking to keep an eye out west in them thar hills, don't miss me, Gina G, on reppin' in NorCal sports. Catch me every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and I'll have your fandom repped harder than a trio of defenders guarding Stephen Curry before his buzzer beater is Gucci.
What is going on, everybody? My name is Harrison Glazer, and we're coming at you from the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. I cover the Jets, the Islanders, the Nets, and the Yankees.
This is Pierre Moss, and I cover the Mets, Knicks, Rangers, and the Giants.
Our show is live every Wednesday through Spreaker and a bunch of other ways to get our content. Again, we're the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. We talk about all those New York sports. It's a lot of fun. We get into all of it. Please tune in. Again, that's Wednesdays at 6 p.m.
And we look forward to having you guys right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Dentarius Lava.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, Where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That gives you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
That is right, everybody. Make sure you tune in to Fast Break, as well as the show that never sleeps and Reppin' NorCal Sports. They are all amazing shows on IE Sports Radio, and their hosts do an amazing job. So definitely do tune into those. Now we are back with segment number 2 of Set Point. Thank you very much to Derryl Trujillo for being a guest on today's show. We greatly appreciate him. So, yeah, it was an honor to have him talking some Inland Empire volleyball on the girls' side, and I'm really happy that we were able to cross paths. I actually mentioned Set Point to him on publicly. I said, good to know about California Baptist's win over New Mexico State and Grand Canyon, so I could talk about for Set Point. And he said, I'd be honored to be a guest. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. So, so that's how we were able to get into contact. So thank you to Derryl once again, and I hope we can have him on again, or maybe some of his past people he's worked with. So now let's jump on into segment number 2 of Set Point. But first and foremost, before we jump into segment number 2, we have the sponsors for this week. So iSports Radio is sponsored by the Southern California Warriors semi-pro football team. The Warriors unfortunately dropped their playoff game to the Riverside Disciples as they lost 14-0 on the road, and they have been eliminated. So the Warriors finished 4-7, and they did make the playoffs, but unfortunately their season came to an end on the road. Best of luck to the Riverside Disciples as they will look to try to win the championship in semi-pro football. So the world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organization. Players pay to play in hopes of to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get that second chance you've been waiting for as an athlete. You can follow them on social media at SoCal Warriors, and you can follow them on Instagram at SouthernCalifornia_Warriors. You can also follow them on Instagram by typing in the word Southern, then California, then Warriors. The second sponsor for IE Sports Radio is Background Check International Businesses. Are you looking to background check a new hire on? Let Kit Fremen take care of that for you. Kit founded and has managed Background Check International Businesses since 1994, and he's here to help you with the screening process. Contact Kit and let him help make the hiring process that much easier. This business is used for professional background checks and not for the use of any crimes such as identity theft or any other illegal activity. They do not have Twitter or Instagram, but they do have Facebook by typing in the word background, then check, then international, then a dash, then BCI. You can also follow them on their website, www.bcint.com, which is how you can keep up with Background Check International Businesses. So thank you to BCI Businesses and the Southern California Warriors for being the official sponsors of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And also, I need to make note of something, that IE Sports Radio has its own Patreon account, as you can become a you could also help IE Sports Radio continue to do what it does best and help produce amazing content. And the holidays are starting to come up as the IE Sports Radio ornaments are about to be on sale soon. So IE Sports Radio has been going on for 7.5 years, and you could help them continuing to do what they do and help create podcasts, as you can go to www.patreon.com/IE-Sports-Radio, or you can just follow IE Sports Radio on Twitter. Click the link for their Twitter, click the link on their Twitter, and then go to their Patreon, and then become a Patreon. So we have one patron already, which is awesome. So whoever you are, I'll give a shout out to you. You're the real MVP. All right, now let's jump on into the NCAA volleyball action. So I'm going to try to speed this up as much as possible, as I actually misplaced my speaker. Gosh darn it. So we're actually just going to jump into the NCAA women's volleyball portion of things. So last week there were some big upsets. There were 4 big upsets that happened. So we'll start with Thursday's upsets, as Minnesota took down Ohio State. Minnesota was actually ranked number 11, while Ohio State was ranked number 7. And for the second time, Minnesota took down Ohio State in 4 sets. The first set was close, but the second sets were basically one-sided, as Ohio State took the second set 25-16. Minnesota took the third set 25-15. Neither team trailed in those sets. And in the fourth set, Minnesota won by the skin of their teeth, as they won it 25-23. Minnesota was led by Stephanie Samity, who had 19 kills, which was very impressive. And then they also got 13 kills from Irie Mayabi, and Jenna Wienis also chipped in 11 kills. For Ohio State, they were led by Gabby Gonzalez, who had 11 kills. Emily Landit had 9 kills, which was kind of surprising. Ohio State only had 1 player in double digits in terms of kills. Ohio State also outdug Minnesota 82-79, which wasn't bad, but Minnesota outblocked Ohio State 12-11, which on paper doesn't seem like much, but they also had 2 solo blocks as well. So, and Ohio State also won the serving battle, which was quite surprising. So the fact that Minnesota didn't really excel too much in certain stats and they only hit 175 speaks to high volumes of how Minnesota is a very resilient team. I also got to make note that Ohio State was held to only 112, which also does not help their offensive output. That was upset number 1. Upset number 2 feature was also on Thursday, and this one was a big upset. This was the upset of Thursday, as South Carolina upset number 5 Kentucky at the Carolina Volleyball Center in 5 sets, which was very impressive. It was the first time South Carolina had beaten Kentucky since 2010, so very impressive win for the Gamecocks. And South Carolina kind of needed this one, because they started off really strong, but then they kind of slipped and eventually fell out of the top 25, as South Carolina was led by Riley Whitesides, who had 18 kills. Kyla Manning chipped in 7 kills, and then Lauren McCutcheon added 7 kills. Or Kyla Manning had 17 kills. Lauren McCutcheon chipped in 7 kills of her own. South Carolina, like I said way back, they ran a 6-2 offense. They ran 2 setters. And this was the mind-blowing part. Kentucky outdug South Carolina 60-43, and Kentucky also hit 345, yet they lost. I don't understand how that's possible. Kentucky is a very good team, and they had some of those outstanding numbers. They outdid South Carolina in most of the statistics, but unfortunately, they just wound up belly flopping. So I don't know what the deal was with Kentucky that night, but all in all, it just wasn't meant to be, I guess. Like, South Carolina won the first set in close fashion, 26-24. Then Kentucky just whomped South Carolina in sets 2 and 3. Then set 4, South Carolina won at 25-20, and then they wound up winning set 5, 15-12. So, good stuff for South Carolina. Unfortunately for South Carolina, and fortunately for Kentucky, Kentucky managed to win the second bout with the 2 teams as they won in straight sets. They dominated that matchup, and Kentucky still leads the SEC, but it just means that Kentucky's margin of error is starting to get a lot slimmer, as they also got to take on Florida. But all in all, Kentucky's still having a great year. So the next upset that occurred was in the Big West Conference on Saturday, as Cal Poly toppled UC Santa Barbara at the Thunderdome in Santa Barbara in 4 sets, or Isla Vista. Something that really stood out to me was that Cal Poly outblocked the living daylight out of Santa Barbara 15-11, which was darn right impressive. And they outdug Santa Barbara 55-43. Very good stuff right there. And they held UC Santa Barbara to only 97, so 0-97, which is a not good hitting percentage for the Gauchos. Cal Poly was led by Tommy Stockham, who had 20 kills. I believe that was her career high, according to one of my buddies in Daniel Gilman of 6 rotations. Meredith Phillips chipped in 14 kills. And I also got to make note that Daniel Gilman, the host of 6 rotations, was on the call for that match. So big ups to him and how he got to call that amazing win for the Mustangs. Cal Poly, it kind of is rather surprising that Cal Poly came off of a loss to Cal State Northridge. But like I talked with Derryl in the first half of the show, it's really sometimes conference play is any given night that any team can win. So all in all, Cal Poly got punched in the mouth on Friday, and then they punched back on Saturday, and UC Santa Barbara was the unfortunate soul that had to take the punching. For Santa Barbara, this kind of hurts their chances of winning the Big West Conference, as now they pretty much got to win out, or they got to hope that Hawaii loses somewhere along the lines. But for UC Santa Barbara, they do have to be careful now. They cannot afford any more losses. They do play UC Davis. So all in all, for the Gauchos, this loss did not do them any favors. And I knew Cal Poly was going to be a possible threat to the Gauchos, just because the Gauchos swept Cal Poly at Cal Poly. As Michael Jordan said, or the whole Michael Jordan meme from The Last Dance would say, and that's when I took that personal. And the Gauchos, unfortunately, caught Cal Poly on an angry day, as Cal Poly pretty much outdid UC Santa Barbara in practically every statistic. And surely enough, Cal Poly deserved to win. Now, for the Big West Conference, this means Hawaii is all alone in first place, as they managed to win their 2 matchups for the week. For Hawaii, if they win, they'll basically be automatically in the NCAA tournament. For UC Santa Barbara, I highly doubt they'll be able to get into the tournament as an at-large, just because it's a non-Power 5 conference, and I hate to say this, but they haven't really had the most impressive schedule, and their body of work isn't all that impressive to me. Like, if they had a few more wins against some certain Power 5 teams, I think they'd be in the tournament, but the Gauchos got off to such a rocky start to begin the season, so I think the Gauchos have basically got to win out, or they won't be going to the tournament. And the same can be said for Hawaii as well. So for the Gauchos, they will also not have the luxury of playing Hawaii at the Thunderdome, as now they'll be playing at Hawaii. The first time Hawaii and UC Santa Barbara played, the Gauchos won at the Thunderdome against Hawaii in straight sets. Now they have to go up to Hawaii, which now Hawaii is allowing fans in the stands, which Stan Sheriff Center can be super lit. And I'm not just saying that for exaggeration. And then lastly, in terms of big upsets from last week, we have Baylor, number 10 Baylor upsetting number 1 Texas. Yes, number 1 Texas suffered its first loss of the season. Baylor won the first set 25-23. Texas won the second set 25-18. Baylor won the third set 25-20. And get this, I don't know if this number is correct, but there were 27 ties in set 4, and Baylor managed to win that fourth set 32-30. I guarantee it, if Texas had forced a fifth set, Baylor would not have won. So big props to the Bears for knocking off the Longhorns. First loss of the season for Texas, as Baylor was led by Yassiana Presley, who had 24 kills, and she hit .302, which wasn't bad. Lauren Harrison and Avery Skinner both chipped in 9 kills, and Cara McGee added 8 kills. Some noteworthy statistics that Texas got outdone in was they got outdug 52-44. While it's not too much, it's rather eye-opening because they have one of the best liberos in the league, as Nalani Iosia, or Osia, managed to only have 6 digs, which is kind of surprising. But maybe they shuffled her and Melanie Parra with one other, as Parra had 11 digs. Either way, something else to note is that Texas actually outblocked Baylor by a whopping 11.5 to 2. I'm surprised Texas got outblocked. Texas outblocked Baylor, and they also out-hit Baylor, but they managed to lose. It's very surprising and rather eyebrow-raising. Like, Texas hit 353, and they were led by Logan Eggleston, who had 23 kills. Skylar Fields chipped in 16 kills, and Breon Butler added 8 kills. So the fact that Texas hit 353, which is darn right impressive, and they still lost, speaks to high volumes of how Baylor is vastly underrated. And I think Baylor is still good, and I think people need to stop sleeping on Baylor. Now, the night before, Baylor actually got punched in the mouth. They got swept by Texas, and I even said this on Twitter through the Set Point account. It seems like Texas is just unstoppable as they're inching closer to that Big 12 championship. Now, for Texas, this means they can't afford to lose anywhere along the road. I'm sure they'll have the tiebreaker over Baylor just because of sets won. So, Texas does need to mind its P's and Q's, but I don't think Texas is going to lose any time down the road. They'd have to be caught on a really, really horrible night in order for that to happen. But I think Texas has got the Big 12 on lock. But for Baylor, I think this solidified themselves as a top 16 seed. The top 16 teams do host this year. It is going to be the traditional 64-team format instead of the 48-team format, which I still think was ridiculous. All in all, for Baylor, this win really proved that they are still here. And while Yassiana Presley had to carry the team, they also got some good key contributions from Skinner and Harrison and Cara McGee. So I think this win really showed Texas that they still have a lot to learn. So, but I think they're still having a phenomenal year. So that's pretty much it for all the noteworthy wins and upsets from last week. Let's actually jump to the AVCA Division I Women's Volleyball Coaches Poll, and then we'll take a quick little commercial break. It'll be a quickie, as the new coaches poll came out today. 21 through 25 consists of Illinois at 25, Tennessee at 24, Creighton at 23, Florida at 22, and Washington State at 21. 20 through 16 includes Stanford at 20, San Diego at 19, Western Kentucky at 18, Oregon at 17, and Utah at 16. 15 through 11 consists of Penn State at 15, Georgia Tech at 14, Washington at 13, UCLA at 12, and Nebraska at 11. 10 through 6 includes Ohio State at 10, Purdue at 9, Minnesota at 8, Kentucky at 7, and Baylor at 6. 5 through 1 consists of Baylor at 5. That is a team to watch for, that's for sure. Shout out to non-Power 5 conferences. Wisconsin at 4, Pitt at 3, Texas at 2, and your new number 1 team in the AVCA Women's Volleyball Division I poll is Louisville. So Louisville is the only undefeated team in the top 25 poll, which is very impressive. Louisville still leads the ACC. I think they've got a vice grip on that, barring a collapse. And I think Louisville's going to look really good. They've got a lot of talent on that team, and this could be the year Louisville rises like the Phoenix from the ashes. Or in this case, the Cardinals from the ashes. As Louisville, in my opinion, their magic number is probably 2 to clinch at least a share of the conference, and the magic number to win the conference outright is 3. Because Pitt is still on their schedule. Next week, they take on Notre Dame, and this week, Louisville's got a big matchup ahead. So I'll be talking about that in a little bit. Something else to note is that Ohio State beat Nebraska on Saturday in 3 sets, and that really shook up the Big Ten Conference just because I didn't think Ohio State was going to bounce back from that. I thought Nebraska was going to come in and beat them in like 4 or 5, just because Nebraska has a lot to prove. But Ohio State really bounced back from their loss against Minnesota, and they managed to beat Nebraska and post a big statement win over a top 10 team. I think Ohio State is kind of that off and on team. I think Ohio State has that potential, but they have to be on it on a nightly basis. Like, if Emily Landot is not at her A game, then Ohio State will struggle. They cannot have other players that's not named Emily Landot just carrying the team. Something else to note, other than Kentucky's loss to South Carolina, is that Tennessee lost to Florida. Now, I've been riding Florida, saying that they have been disappointing, and I think everyone else can say that Florida has been somewhat of a disappointment this year. But I think this win over Tennessee really proved that Florida still has it in them. Tennessee will just have to work a little bit harder if they want to have more success in the SEC, and they're also going to have to work harder if they want to go deep in the NCAA tournament. Like, I don't see Tennessee winning the SEC right now unless Kentucky and Florida and maybe Mississippi State have major collapses. But one thing I did like about Tennessee is that they did bounce back from that loss and they defeated Ole Miss. Ole Miss has been flying under the radar and they could get into the NCAA tournament, but they just don't have the wins to do so. So for Tennessee, I think they're still going to make the NCAA tournament. It would be quite head-scratching if they missed out on the tournament, or if they were the final or the first four teams to miss it. So, all in all, for Tennessee, I think they're still a solid team. It's just that they kind of showed their cracks, in my opinion. UCLA also had a big weekend last week as they outlasted Utah in 5 sets, and they swept Colorado. UCLA is still in first place of the Pac-12, with Washington right on their coattails. And then Stanford managed to get back Kendall Kipp and Cammie Minor, and Alex Lugay as well. Unfortunately for Stanford, they split their matches against the Oregon schools as they lost to Oregon in straight sets, which was the first time they got swept in the series against Oregon since 2011, when Oregon made the final, by the way. And then, at the very least, Stanford beat Oregon State, because if they did not, then Stanford might have been slipped a lot further than 20. And then Western Kentucky went undefeated in Conference USA regular season play, as now they enter the Conference USA tournament with a lot of momentum. I would not be surprised if Western Kentucky and Rice faced one another. I think Rice and Western Kentucky are the two-headed monster of that conference. So I think it'll boil down to those two. Like, I just don't see how it wouldn't be one of those two teams. And then Washington State, in my opinion, had themselves quite an impressive weekend as they defeated Arizona, but also what was even more impressive was that Magda Jelarova had 21 kills in Washington State's reverse sweep of Arizona State. And they needed that one just because that would have probably knocked them out of the top 25 if they had lost to Arizona State. But for Magda Jelarova, she actually had 21 kills, and she hit 840. So, in other words, she had 21 kills, she had 25 attempts, and get this, she had 0 hitting errors. So, that is absolutely amazing. I cannot believe those numbers, and I'm just like, whoa. The fact that she had 0 errors, she had 20-plus kills, and she had 25 attempts is absolutely amazing. So I really got to give a tip of the hat to Magda Jelarova on that stat right there. So, and I think Washington State is much better than last year. Last year they were young. I've been saying this all year. Washington State was a young team, but I think this year they are still contenders, and they're a team that no one wants to face in the NCAA tournament. That's for sure. And then also the Big Ten Conference kind of got shaken up, like I said. Wisconsin is all alone in first place as they won their week last week. As remember, Nebraska split their 2 matches. They beat Illinois, and then they managed to lose to Ohio State, which I'm still surprised at what happened. So either way, I think the Big Ten is still up for grabs. I don't think there is a clear-cut favorite, but all in all, I think it's going to be a fight to the finish, and this could boil down to the last week, because currently Wisconsin is in first place, but Nebraska is now tied with Minnesota for second. And keep in mind, Minnesota defeated Nebraska on its home floor in 5 sets, and soon Nebraska and Minnesota will be facing one another again. They already play both of their matches? So I guess they're only playing one time this year, so that's actually crucial. So Minnesota and Nebraska won't be playing each other again, as that's their only matchup from last week. So, that sucks. But oh well. So, looking at Minnesota's schedule, they're still in the hunt for the Big Ten Conference Championship. It's just that they're going to need to be a little bit more careful. And they've got a big match ahead of them, which I'll be talking about in a little bit. And then they've also got Wisconsin, which could be for first place. And they've also got Penn State, which Penn State really punched them in the mouth. So there was that. So that's pretty much going to do it for the final few notes and weigh-in on the NCAA Women's Volleyball Division I scene. I'm actually going to take a quick little commercial break. Don't worry, I'll be back soon. When we come back, I will be discussing Hawaii men's volleyball, and then I'll be previewing the matches to watch for in the NCAA women's volleyball scene. So you're listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this quick little commercial breaky break.
What is going on, everybody? This is Ben Metello, the host of the Yinza Report, right here on IE Sports Radio. I'm bringing you the latest in the Steel City, the City of Champions, from the Steelers, the Penguins, the Pirates, as well as the college game with both Penn State and Pitt. You could join me every Tuesday afternoon at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, right here on IE Sports Radio, where I'll be talking about everything from the Steel City, the City of Champions, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out the Insert Report with my buddy Ben Metello. He does a fantastic job with his show. And yeah, he talks about all things Pittsburgh. He'll even talk some Pitt women's volleyball and some Penn State women's volleyball. And he does a great job of that. So definitely do check out the Insert Report tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, 1 p.m. Eastern. So now let's jump into some men's volleyball action. Yes, men's volleyball season is just around the corner, and I got to check out the University of Hawaii's men's volleyball team as they played in the Orange Coast Classic this past Thursday, as they played Orange Coast College and Vanguard University. So, for those keeping score, we have an NCAA Men's Volleyball Division I team, we have an NAIA team, and a 3C2A Men's Volleyball team. So, it is quite impressive that those three teams got to play one another, and it's not every day that you get to play a national champion in NCAA Men's Volleyball. And it's rather impressive and rather amazing that I got to see Hawaii. I got to see some of their players, and I also got to meet Charlie Wade, which he's a really great guy, and I'm really happy to have met him. So after Hawaii's scrimmage against Orange Coast, I actually caught up with Charlie Wade after the scrimmage to talk about this upcoming season and to talk about other things that are happening with the University of Men's Volleyball. This is Teran Rodriguez of Set Point with Hawaii Men's Volleyball coach Charlie Wade. All right, Charlie, what did you like in your team scrimmage today?
Well, this time of year, it's just about getting on the court, and trying different combinations. So, Orange Coast is a good team, a lot of good players, one of the best coaches in the country. So it was a really good opportunity for us.
You all being the reigning NCAA champions, how big of the target is it on your back, and what are you looking forward to when the season comes?
Well, we'll see. I think, that's something that we don't really control. We think we've been pretty good for a while, and teams, we're kind of used to getting everybody's best shot. So, we just want to continue to improve, and when the season starts, be able to, get out and compete and play our best each and every night.
And who are going to be some of your standout players that will be returning for you all this year?
Yeah, well, our setter played great in the NCAA tournament last year, Jakob Telle, and he's really had a nice fall camp for us, as has Guillermo Voss, returning middle blocker. So I think those two will continue to play at a high level.
And then knowing that you'll be having fans back at the Stan Sheriff Arena, what's that going to be like for you all, as that place is always rocking more times than not?
That'll be unbelievable. It's such a big part of it. I've said many times, they're not, our wins aren't for them, they're because of them. They really are an integral part of our program, and just the support that we get from our community is so humbling and really motivating for everybody in the program.
Are there any matches in particular that you're looking forward to, or are you looking forward to just getting back to the court?
Yeah, so for us, it's January 5th, right? Our first match of the year. That's the one we're looking forward to the most and most excited about.
So yeah, that was my interview with Charlie Wade. I didn't want to eat up too much of his time just because he was busy and there was going to be another scrimmage going on. So it was great meeting him. And something else I wanted to ask was, what's it going to be like going down to Long Beach and facing them? But again, he basically answered that question, and he's looking forward to seeing every game. He's looking forward to the season opener. And all in all, I think it's going to be really exciting to see Hawaii men's volleyball back on the court again, doing their thing. And it was great to see them in the scrimmage as well. So thank you to Charlie Wade for taking time out of his day for letting me interview him. So I actually caught up with Bradley Rostratter, former Set Point guest and Vanguard University men's volleyball coach, and I talked it up with him about what's it going to take for his team to have another big season, as the Lions actually made it to the NAIA semifinals last year. All right, this is Teran Rodriguez of Set Point here with former Set Point guest and Vanguard men's volleyball coach Brad Rostratter. Brad, what did you like about the scrimmage today from your teams that participated?
Yeah, it was great for us. There was a heck of a lot of volleyball. We got to play continuous volleyball pretty much from 12 to 4, just volleyball, which was really good for us, and it was really good high competition between OCC and their 3, 4, 5 different teams they threw out to University of Hawaii as well. It really helped us learn and understand different ways to play the game, and everything we've been working on in the gym and how to translate that into competition and competing. And I thought our guys did a great job managing that transition really well.
What was that feeling like facing the reigning NCAA Division I champions in Hawaii?
Yeah, for us it was just more about testing us to see where we're at, because every team's a new team every single year, and kind of seeing who's on the other side of the net. Yeah, it can be cool, it can be a little different, but for us it's mostly about figuring out where we're at now and what we need to be better at by April.
Coming off of an NAIA semifinal run, what's it going to take to have that same run, if not a run to the championship?
Yeah, it's going to take us getting better at volleyball. So for us that means being a little bit better with our service receiving, being a heck of a lot better from the service line, managing and limiting errors, especially when we're out of system. And just ultimately playing volleyball the right way. And we did it at times, but it's just that ability to sustain it continually over time is something that we're really looking forward to being able to do more and more this season.
And then who are some players that are going to be noteworthy to watch for this year?
Yeah, we have a really talented roster and group of guys, 29 guys, that we're really stoked on. We bring back 3 All-Americans, Kyle Onema, outside hitter, Matt Rusin, who's an opposite for us last season, and we'll see where he ends up this season. And then add setter Bryce Thompson as well. So those 3 are going to be great, but we got a heck of a lot of other guys who are feisty and ready to get after it and keep the train moving forward.
Okay, First of all, I apologize for the doors opening and closing just because I filmed this right outside of the gym floor and right outside of the gym. And it was either film inside the gym where there's still a lot of people clamoring or film outside where there's going to be a door opening. And I chose outside. But all in all, it was great catching up with Brad. I think Vanguard has the potential of having a deep NCAA tournament run. You heard what he said. He returns Kyle Anima, and they're opposite and setter. And the offense pretty much starts with Kyle. I think he's going to be a stud for Vanguard this year, and I think he's going to do some big damage when it comes to the GSAC. The only team that I kind of fear, and this has kind of been the kryptonite for Vanguard, and I hate to use that word, is Benedictine, which is from Arizona. And I hope that one day Vanguard does get over the hump against Benedictine. They came close one time. They lost in 5 and they got reverse swept, which was a big punch to the mouth, especially when their fans were packing the stands. So all in all for Vanguard, I think it's going to be a great year for them under Brad Rostratter. I really think they're going to have a lot of success this year. That's going to do it for some NCAA men's volleyball talk. I totally forgot about the CIF Southern Section high school volleyball finals in Division 1 and 2. So in Division 1, Marymount beat Mater Dei in 4 sets, 27-25, 25-23, 23-25, and 25-23. All the sets were decided by 2 points, which is very, very amazing. And it was an instant classic. Unfortunately, I didn't go to that matchup, and part of me really wanted to go to that matchup, but I was elsewhere, and I was also at the Division 2 final. So that's pretty much where I was at. And I'm going to try to summarize this a lot briefer. All in all, I think Marymount and Mater Dei could be seeing each other again. And that next time could be for the national championship. I think this was for the part 1 of the national championship. And part 2, which could be in the near future, will officially be for the national championship. There is no real such thing as the national champion, but according to Max Preps, there is such thing as the national champion in terms of having the best record overall. So I really got to give it up to Marymount. I will eat my crow and say I was wrong about Mater Dei. Mater Dei did all that they could to take down Marymount, but unfortunately for Marymount, they just really pulled out all the stops. Aaliyah Rubin was on a tear, and she had the game of her life. And I don't know if you're listening, Gina G, but Rubin is going to go to Stanford next year. And it's going to be for indoor volleyball. And I think the setter for Marymount is going to go to Stanford for indoor and beach volleyball, which is really cool. So all in all, for Marymount, they proved that they were the number 1 team in the nation, and they finished undefeated. They finished 31-0. I talked about how Cal State San Bernardino finished 33-0 and won a championship. Marymount doing that at the high school level is darn right impressive. I haven't seen that great of a run since Huntington Beach's boys volleyball team did so in 2014 and 2015. And the scary part is that Marymount didn't even play one 5-set match. Not one. They had been pushed to 4 a couple times, but they had not played a best-of-5 match, or a 5-set match. And that is rather impressive for Marymount and Coach Kerry Klein. I think that team this might be the best team this decade. It's early to say that, and it's only 2021, but they're making the case for best team of the decade. But Mater Dei they're right there. Like, it's all about closing out. Like, that first set, they were up 22-19, and then they allowed Marymount to get back in the set, which is probably what they didn't want to see. So, all in all, they're still a good team. Mater Dei is still solid, but they're going to have to work a tad bit harder if they want to take down Marymount. Marymount is the number 1 seed for the CIF Open Division State Tournament, as they are the number 1 seed, like I said. They'll be playing Village Christian. Mater Dei is the number 3 seed, surprisingly, and they'll be playing La Costa Canyon in the in the first round. If Mater Dei manages to make it to the quarterfinals or the semifinals in the regionals, they'll take on Cathedral Catholic, which is San Diego's best team. But until then, Cathedral Catholic actually has to play Lakewood, which Lakewood obviously did not have their best CIF Southern Section tournament. They lost in the first round to Vista Murrieta. Well, they lost in the quarterfinals. They had a first-round bye, but they lost in the quarterfinals to Vista Murrieta on the road, and I did not know this. Lakewood had one player test positive for COVID, and they unfortunately could not participate in a tournament. One of their games got canceled, and unfortunately, they couldn't practice. So, yeah, it was quite the bummer for Lakewood, but now that they have their bad game out of the way, and now that they've kind of gotten themselves back in the gymnasium, I think Lakewood could do some damage. And I would not be surprised if Lakewood defeated Cathedral Catholic, because they beat Cathedral Catholic once already. I think they could do it again. And that would be huge for Mater Dei, because from this point forward, it's no longer coin flips. It's now higher seed gets to host. So if Mater Dei wins and then Lakewood wins, then Mater Dei gets to host Lakewood. So there's that right there for the CIF State playoffs. So the other Southern Section championship that went on was Aliso Niguel versus Huntington Beach. Huntington Beach is coached by Craig Pizzanti, the former set point guest who has been on a couple of episodes, as he was on the 49th episode and 100th episode. Unfortunately for Huntington Beach and Craig Pizzanti, Aliso Niguel won in 4 sets. Huntington Beach led in sets 1 and 2, but unfortunately they relinquished the lead, and Aliso Niguel won those 2 sets. Then in set 3, Huntington Beach finally found their bearings, and they actually ran the middle. Kind of like in football, whenever you run the middle, good things happen for you. And in set number 4, Aliso Niguel was able to... Well, Huntington Beach and Aliso Niguel were back and forth in that 4th set. Huntington Beach had the lead, but then they lost it at the midway point, and Aliso Niguel never gave it up as they won the 4th set 25-21. So I actually caught up with Aliso Niguel girls volleyball coach Richelle Whiting on winning the CIF Southern Section Division II championship. All right, so your team won the CIF Southern Section Division II championship. What is going through your mind right now after you had such a long climb up the mountain?
I knew we could do it. There was never that doubt in my mind that we could do this and could earn this title. We're a very tough team. When our backs are up against the wall, we play good volleyball, and we enjoy those moments. And it's kind of a mantra we've had all year where I just tell them, like, this is our playground, and we're going to go out there, we're going to have fun on it, and we're going to just play. And they're pretty good at, like, it slips away from them for moments at a time, but they find it again.
The serve-receive battle didn't really favor you, as you only had 1 ace, and HB had quite a bit, 15 aces.
Yeah, they're a tough serving team.
Yeah, what can you say about what were ways that you actually tweaked what were the reasons and ways you tweaked that despite getting outdone in that?
Well, you know, they might not get a great pass, but we're going to put up a tough block. Mm-hmm. And once we figured out who they wanted to set in certain rotations, they had to get around those 2 girls. So that got us out of jail quite a bit, you know? And then we also have some terminators as well. But, you know, at the end, our blocking really stepped up. Did a good job.
Smith and Duffey had 15 and 14 kills, but you also got some contributions in the middle.
Yeah.
Like, what can you say about your offense and how it was just dominant?
You know, we're an interesting team in the sense of not knowing who's going to be our main contributor. We kind of don't really know sometimes until we're in the match, and which is kind of good when you're playing against people because they don't know. They might think, you know, last week it was Ava Travis, and they're focusing on her, and then all of a sudden, Maddie Smith turns on, and Brooke Patchell turns on, and so it makes it really hard to figure us out. We have quite a few different plays and a lot of, you know, my oppo is also middle, so she can get a quick attack too. So we kind of just give them a lot to worry about. And that's, my setter's a good offensive player as well. She can dump pretty well. So it's just over time you're going to stress people out. that helps, you know.
And then you've had yourself quite the journey as you had to go forward with Poly, you had to go forward with Rancho Cucamonga, you had to reverse sweep Laguna Beach, you had to go 5 with LaSalle despite being down 2-1.
Yeah.
And then you had to go on the road to take on this tough HB team.
Yeah.
Like, what are the ways and what's the secret to like battle testing your team? And then you also dropped that heartbreaker to St. Clemente, which bumped you out of Division 1 too. What are ways to like keep your team high? You know?
I always just tell them, like, we're a really mentally healthy team. We all really enjoy each other, and so it's just about getting out there and playing and having fun together. And that kind of takes the pressure off, you know? I mean, the whole thing is, like, we're all going to go home and go to our houses. Our families are going to love us. We're going to eat dinner. We're going to be fine. Like, this is just volleyball, and we got to enjoy this process. And when we lose, we learn, and when we win, we learn, because it's hard for us to win easily. We don't do it easily. We do it the hard way. So.
And then the state playoffs are next week. What's it going to take to have a state championship run?
It's going to take more grit, more consistency, and, you know, still the composure. But I think knowing that we can do this, having this confidence, is going to help us out tremendously.
And then 38 is your daughter, I presume, right?
Yeah.
And so with her and you winning the CIF championship, what's that feeling like?
It's
you won this whole thing together.
It's amazing. Obviously, I'm super proud of her as a mom. Being her coach, I think we do a pretty good job at like leaving that at home. You know, she holds herself very accountable. In fact, most of the time I'm telling herself not to be so hard on herself. She's the toughest critic. But she makes, if she shanks the ball, she gets the next one. So that's, you know, that's where I have my faith in her. I know she never spirals. She's just got to keep grinding. She's a hard worker.
So, yeah, that was my interview with Aliso Niguel, girls volleyball coach, Richelle Whiting, and that last part where she talked about her daughter, I felt the emotion from her. It looked like she was very proud of her, and it looked as if, I wouldn't say she was going to cry, but it didn't look like she was going to cry. But all in all, she was very proud of her daughter, and it's really awesome to see a mother-daughter coach combination winning a championship. And it's really quite amazing. And this is Aliso Niguel's first championship since 2014, back when they won it with a certain Catherine Plummer on their team. So I actually caught up with one of the Aliso Niguel girls volleyball players, Kendra Duffey, on the CIF Southern Section Division II championship win. All right, so your team managed to win the CIF Southern Section Division II championship.
Yeah.
What is going through your mind knowing that you achieved this feat and you are a senior and whatnot?
This is such a surreal experience. Like, this was always like a goal for our team. Like, we always had like super high expectations for ourselves, and we just proved that tonight. Like, every single girl that stepped on the court like contributed to this win, and every girl on the team contributed to this win. And it's such an amazing feeling knowing that I was able to do that as a senior and like let the little ones on the team know that like it's possible. So.
And the first two sets looked like it could have gone either way, as Huntington Beach made late runs to go up ahead, but then you all just recollected yourself and bounced back. Like, what were the ways you were able to adjust to Huntington Beach's game plan?
We knew that we were a stronger team to begin with, and we just needed to play our game on our side of the net no matter what they did, because that's the only controllable thing that we could have done. We had really, really solid blocking and really solid offense on the net, and I think that really pulled the game together.
You obviously had 14 kills from what I got, but then Madeline Smith also stepped up, and even Ava Travis had the match-clinching kill, and then obviously your middle did well. What can you say about the other offensive players on your team?
I think they're incredible. Like, practicing with them and playing with them is such an amazing like experience. Like, I have so much fun with them on the court, and they deserve this as much as everybody else. Like, they contributed so much, and they practice so hard and work so hard in the gym, and I'm very, very proud of them.
It's been a whirlwind of a volleyball career for your high school career, as you had to deal with COVID last year, and then the previous year you lost to Redondo Union, and then the year before that you lost to LoSal, even though you were the number 1 seed. Having won the championship, what can you say about this moment and how it's satisfying to get that win?
It is. I can't even put it into words about how proud I am, of everybody that I've known since my freshman year. And I'm also very proud of myself for coming this far and knowing that it's possible. We just proved that no matter how long you're on the team, anything is possible.
And then, obviously, this was a long playoff run as you had to deal with Pauley in 4, Rancho Cucamonga in 4, you had to reverse sweep Laguna, and then you had to defeat LaSalle in 5.
Yeah.
How were you all able to keep yourself battle-tested? And let's not forget San Clemente at the last day of the season, regular season.
I think we all just decided that if we're going to go out, we're going to go out with a bang. We're going to have as much fun as possible on the court as we can. We all know what we're capable of, and we all know that we're really good volleyball players. So it just comes down to us having fun and doing what we do.
And then state playoffs are next week.
Yes.
What's it going to take to possibly become state champions and make one more run and put the cherry on top for your senior year?
To get back in the gym and work hard. This is just an amazing thing, but we can't stop there. We have to go in the gym and work 10 times harder than we've ever done before and have really high goals and believe that we can do it.
All right, thanks. All right, so that was that for Aliso Niguel and interviewing Kendra Duffey, who is a senior. I don't know if she's going to be playing college volleyball, and I don't know where she's going to be playing college volleyball, but boy howdy, if she does get to play at the collegiate level, that college is going to be lucky to have her. Unfortunately for Huntington Beach, it was a tough loss as I think their youth kind of got in the way. They do have some good seniors on their team, but I think they were just a bit young. Huntington Beach is still looking for that elusive championship that they have won. They're trying to win. It would have been the first time they would have won CIF since 1996. It would have been 25 years ago since they last won their first CIF championship, had they won last Saturday. But unfortunately, it just wasn't meant to be. But they still have the state playoffs. Craig Pizzanti, I didn't interview him afterward, but he said if we had won those first 2 sets, it maybe would have been a different story. I'm just paraphrasing. He said, it did not help that we couldn't close out the first 2 sets. And those are heartbreaker sets there. You can't afford to fall behind 0-2 in the championship. I do not know a whole lot of teams that have reverse swept their way to winning CIF. And unfortunately for the Oilers, they weren't one of those teams. So, all in all, it was a tough loss for Craig and the Huntington Beach Oilers, but everyone at IE Sports Radio is proud of them, and everyone here at Set Point is proud of Craig Pizzanti and his efforts with the Oilers. So, good luck in state, Huntington Beach. So, we have surpassed 2 hours. Let us briefly go over the matches to watch for. I'm not going to go full in depth, but here are the matches to watch for, in my opinion. Starting on Thursday, Veterans Day. First of all, thank you to all the veterans who have served our country. We greatly appreciate you. God bless to you all. But on Thursday, we have Pepperdine at number 5 BYU, number 13 Washington at number 20 Stanford, and LMU at number 19 San Diego. Basically, it's a West Coast swing right here. Those are the noteworthy matchups, especially for BYU. They're inching closer to that West Coast Conference Championship. LMU is still looking for that standout win. Pepperdine is looking to get back into the top 25. And then Washington is looking to still keep pace with UCLA as they take on a tough Stanford team. So on Friday, in the ACC, we have number 14 Georgia Tech at Louisville, number 1 Louisville, number 9 Purdue at number 4 Wisconsin, number 15 Penn State at Michigan, and USC at number 17 Oregon. USC almost beat Oregon, but as they're starting to run out of time when it comes to possibly winning some big standout wins or winning to just get to 500 so they could be an at-large, Oregon's still trying to keep pace with UCLA in the Pac-12. Penn State still trying to keep pace with the rest of the Big Ten, while Michigan is just trying to find that big standout victory. Purdue trying to win their second straight over Wisconsin as they won the first one in Indiana, while Wisconsin's still trying to control the Big Ten. And Georgia Tech trying to play spoiler to number 1 Louisville, as Louisville, the number 1 team in the nation, trying to inch closer and closer to that ACC championship crown. So then on Saturday, we have LMU at number 5 BYU, number 21 Washington State at number 20 Stanford, Pepperdine at number 19 San Diego, number 24 Tennessee, and at Mississippi State round off the Saturday matchups. So Tennessee at Mississippi State is sneaky good just because Mississippi State is trying to make one final push to the committee to say we belong in the tournament. Tennessee trying to stay afloat in the top 25 to punch their ticket in. Obviously, they're not going to win the SEC, but they obviously can't afford to lose too many more games. Pepperdine at San Diego, like I said, both those teams are trying to vie for position, and they're trying to make their case known. Pepperdine is trying to get back into the top 25, while San Diego trying to keep pace with BYU. And then LMU at BYU. BYU still trying to stay atop of the West Coast Conference, while LMU is trying to find that big breakthrough win to sway the committee to put them in. But them not being a Power 5 conference is not going to give them a good shot at it, or them not being in a big Power 5 conference is not going to give them a good shot at making it. But we'll see with LMU. And then Washington State at Stanford is basically Stanford trying to stay with the tour of the top teams in the Pac-12, and then same goes for Washington State. Washington State is kind of running out of chances to get into the NCAA tournament, but I could see them being in the NCAA tournament regardless of if they finish in the top 25 or not. And then Sunday, we have number 8 Minnesota at number 9 Purdue, number 16 Utah at Arizona State, and number 10 Ohio State at number 25 Illinois. Not too many noteworthy matchups for Utah, Arizona State. This is the battle of, can Arizona State get back on track after they lost to the Washington schools? Ohio State at Illinois is sneaky good just because it's two ranked teams going at it, and Illinois trying to ride the wave of momentum to locking up a spot in the NCAA tournament. And then Minnesota and Purdue is basically the battle of who can stay in the top 2 of the Big Ten Conference. Minnesota would benefit a lot if they were to defeat Purdue, just because that would get them closer and keep them staying with Nebraska, who's tied for them in second place, and Wisconsin, who is currently leading the conference. So that is going to do it for all the noteworthy matchups to watch for this week. And I know I kind of went hyperspeed, but I have been on here for over 2 hours, but not by my choice. Regardless, it has been a fun show. That is going to do it for Set Point. I appreciate you all tuning in, especially if you've been tuning in for all 2 hours of the show. And without any further delay, it is time, ladies and gentlemen, to drop that beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you very much for everyone that tuned in to Set Point. I greatly appreciate you. If you listen live, I really appreciate you. If you listen on the replay, I appreciate you. If you listen in the wee hours of the morning, I appreciate you. Thank you to the chat room that tuned in. Thank you to Larry B, Gina G, who says she's still here. I appreciate you. Hopefully you caught the part of the Marymount players going to Stanford in the near future and whatnot. Thank you to Pierre Moss, who tuned in, and Marcus Lilsgreat that also tuned in. I appreciate those guys tuning in. Thank you, big thank you to my guest Derryl Trujillo for guest starring on Set Point. I really do appreciate you. Thank you for all your insight on the Inland Empire girls volleyball scene. It really means a lot, and I hope to catch those NCAA Division 2 and Division 3 championship games or NCAA tournament games and whatnot for the NCAA women's volleyball scene. Regardless, for Derryl Trujillo and everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. You all have yourself a great rest of the day. You all have yourself a great rest of the week. I'll still be covering some volleyball as long as it's going on. I will see you most likely Friday for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, depending on what my schedule looks like. Either way, I will see you all on the flip side.